I was born Mitsuru Louise Takeuchi, 520 Webster Street in Oakland, California, March 20th, 1925. And my father passed away when I was 4 years old, so I didn't get to know him too well. So then my mother was left with 6 children, and she didn't speak very much English, was busy taking care of kids and all that. And so my uncle, my father's younger brother, said that some of us should be farmed off. And so I was farmed off to my grandfather's brother's home in Fresno, and my two brothers, one younger one and one older one, went to Japan to live with my mother's brother, his uncle, our uncle. And so I grew up in Fresno by myself. I mean, not with my siblings. And my great uncle, a lovely person, but he didn't know how to spell Louise, so he took me to kindergarten because I was 4 or 5 years old by then. And he wrote down it was Lois. So I was Lois, and I took his name because he might adopt me. And so it was Lois Kobayashi until the war broke out, and by that time I was 15. And then at that time we had to use, we have our birth certificates to prove who we are and all, and we are American citizens. And it says Louise Takeuchi. Who's this? Oh, that's me. But in Fresno, we had a Japanese Methodist church, and that's where I was baptized as a Methodist. That was when I was 9 years old, I think. I remember. A lot of Japanese and Chinese were there, a lot of them. I think maybe the Chinese community, maybe, I don't know, about the same size, I guess. Quite a few Asians there. You know, when the war broke out, the Japanese from the West Coast were sent to inland. When they gave us the regulation that we're supposed to all go to camps, then my mother in Oakland said to my brother, my other siblings, and still living in Oakland, that we better get together with Louise and granduncle, and he can't move because he's sick, so we better move to Fresno and be with him. So that's how they moved to Fresno, so that we'd be together when we went to camps. My uncle developed tuberculosis, so he became very sick before we were supposed to move out. And so he went to the hospital there in Fresno, and then before we were told to move out. And then when we were told to move out to those camps, he couldn't be moved because he was very sick. But he passed away just about the month that we were leaving. Isn't that something? But at my age, at that time, I just thought, well, this is what happened, and it's because Japan declared war on us, and what are we going to do, you know? My older siblings were very angry about it, but, you know, disappointed, but I didn't really get mad about that. My sisters always did, my older ones. To me, I said, well, that's what President Roosevelt ordered, so we'll have to go along with it. And we didn't know what our future held for us, but we were sent to Arkansas. Our camp was not ready for us yet. So it was all muddy and no sidewalks, no boardwalks. It was just awful. But they had to get us set up into camps right away. And so we kind of stamped around in the mud and all. But it was pretty primitive at that time. And, you know, like they had showers just for the men folks, shower for the women folks, and there were about 8 of us taking the shower at the same time. And let's see, my older brother was married. My older brother and his wife, and my mother and my 2 sisters, we were all together in one. It was a hut with all of us in there. But we had divisions with, we had put sheets right there so we could have separate rooms, but we were all in one room. There were 5 of us, I think, at that time. At that time, it was just a ball. It was so terrible. And look where they're putting us, all 5 of us in this one room like this. I was able to get a job until school started. All of us who were able became waitresses in our mess hall. We call them mess halls, the dining room. And some people worked as cooks, and some people worked. And then I became a nurse's aide. I took a nurse's aide course with the Red Cross while I was there in high school. I thought the people were nice. I mean, the people I worked with and the administration, they were all very good people. Well, maybe that's why they're working there. They would volunteer from the people in Arkansas. And the teachers were nice, and they didn't have enough doctors and nurses, so they got them from the Japanese group. So we knew a lot of the people, and then some of the teachers were people I knew. And then we had a chance to go out about once a month. We had some of the people who worked there take us out, a group of us, out to the cities to do shopping. In fact, the only thing was, I mean, for us it was okay, but they had segregation going on at that time. And I go over there and I start drinking water from the fountain. They said, lady, no, that's for the blacks. You're over here. I said, it says whites only. Well, I'm not a white. Well, you're not a black. And it was something, it was really bad at that time. And I remember after I was relocated out and I go visit to some, I go through Arkansas to other places. But, well, in fact, I went to Washington to visit my friend in D.C., and that was very segregated. It was really something, you know, because I go, and my friend was working at that time, so I just go by myself to go shopping, and I go into the bus, and I'd say, oh, there's a place there. I go sit over there in the back there, and then the driver said, lady, you're supposed to sit up here. That's for blacks only. I said, my gosh, there's seats over there. But that's when I first found out about segregation. It was really something sad. It was very sad. And I graduated from high school in Arkansas. Then I have a beautiful diploma from Arkansas. And it was, the people were very nice. They didn't know, they've never had Asians there before living in there. And then part of our teachers were Arkansans, and they didn't have enough teachers, so they had some of the other Japanese who had taught before the war broke out, and they recruited them. So we had some of the people we knew who were teachers. After I graduated from high school, in order to get out of camp before they allowed us to, we had to have sponsors from outside sponsoring us. And the Quakers offered to sponsor anybody. So they're in Philadelphia. They sponsored me, so then I went to Philadelphia and I worked with them for about a year. My two older sisters, we were able to get sponsors, and they were moved out. One of my older sisters was able to move to Ohio, and my other sister stayed with my mother until she was able to go out too. And then she even became an American citizen. You know, she studied. I still have her books that she studied English and everything. And she was trying to ask me all the questions about the Bill of Rights and everything. And I said, Mom, I think you know more than I do. I can't remember those things. And there's an organization called the WRA, War Relocation Authority, for people coming out of camps. We go there to find what kind of jobs we can find, or also places to live. And they said, well, there's some people who would like people to live in with them. The one they suggested was this lady who was by herself. She's an older lady, and her husband had passed away, and her son was with the army, and he was overseas in Burma. And she needed a company just at nighttime. And so I went to see her. She was an Armenian lady, lovely lady. And so I said, oh, what am I supposed to do? She said, just keep me company at nighttime, that's all. And you could go to work or school or whatever you want to. Just at nighttime, I want someone there. So I said, okay. So that was right outside of Philadelphia. And I have to take a a streetcar, or was a streetcar or bus down to her place in Drexel Hill. I lived with her for about a year and a half. And then I went to her church. It's Armenian church, Armenian, and then minister spoke, he preached in Turkish and Armenian and in English. 3 of them all in 1 hour. he talked first in Turkish, then in Armenian, and then in English, the same sermon. She had a certain pew. The Mrs. Mesjin had a pew, and I sat with her all the time. And people said, I wonder if Mrs. Mesjin adopted this woman. She says, this girl. and Mrs. Mesjin said, no, I didn't adopt her, but she's staying with me and she's working for me. I said, oh. So it was very nice. I'm sorry I didn't learn any Armenian while I lived with her for a year. Being in with the Quakers, it was very nice. It was at that time. So I have a fondness for them. I was with them just for a year until I went to college. I got enough credits and all that. I was able to go to college. And then I went to a small Methodist school, Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington, Illinois. A lot of the schools wouldn't accept Japanese students, and Illinois Wesleyan would accept Japanese. But the townspeople, they weren't familiar with us, and on the weekends, I liked to work, do some kind of work, and I went to look for a job, and they wouldn't hire me because I'm Japanese. Then State Farm was accepting people, and they didn't know I was Japanese, even with my name. So I went there and applied for a job, and they gave me an application, and then they called me in for an interview. So I went there for an interview. They saw me, and I took the test entrance, and they said, oh, you're in the top 10, wonderful. And then when I went for the interview, they were surprised to see that I wasn't, even with a different name, they weren't sure what kind of person I was. And then they found out that I was Japanese, and they couldn't accept me. That was State Farm. So it didn't matter. I did some work with the school. I did babysitting, and I worked in the administration office and things like that. And I ended up becoming an accountant. I had one of my younger brother wanted to come back. He was in Japan with my uncle. And so my older sister said, Louise, why don't you sign up for a job with the federal and trying to get our younger brother back? So I did. I signed up with Department of Defense and asked for a job in Japan, and I got a job. And so I went to the American Embassy and told them that I'd like to get my brother out. I'm an American citizen. Here's my birth certificate and everything, and I'm working for the federal government. And so within about 6 months, I was able to get my brother back to the States. And I worked in Japan for about 4 years, I think. It was just occupied. It was called the occupation, occupied Japan. And for me, it was easy because I was working for the Department of Defense, and I was able to visit my brother in Tokyo, outskirts of Tokyo, and I just went with, I knew how to go there by train. It's funny, I'd be on the train and there'd be some GIs with their Japanese girlfriend, riding in, and I guess I was dressed more decently than some of the Japanese were. I had, by that time they're still not getting along too well. And when I heard this guy, GI, looking at me and said, she looks different. And the girl said, oh, same thing. She's same as me, but I was dressed a little bit differently. He didn't know that I could understand English, I guess. But it made me smile. But it was an experience, that transition while the occupation army was still there. And then I decided I better come back. It's just, well, all I can say is that I thought I better come back to the States. So I did come back. And then I worked for the same Department of Defense here. And then my mother was living in, my mother and family were living in Monterey right after the camp. At that time, I wrote to the people here in Corps of Engineers in San Francisco if I could get transfer from Japan, and they said, sure. So I got a job here in San Francisco. I was a Methodist, so I went to see if I can go to a church, a Methodist school, church, and they sent me to Glide. And at that time, I said, okay, so I went there, but I thought, gee, these people are a little bit different. Very friendly people, lovely, but I didn't feel comfortable. You know, you hold hands with the people in your pew, and you're just singing, and it's really a little bit different. And anyway, I started to do volunteer work at the California Pacific Medical Center, and I met some of the people from Calvary. This is an old timer, I guess you won't know, but it's Virginia Clark. And she was wonderful, and she said, you know, why don't you join our church? It's, you know, it's a real nice church, and you do your volunteer work here in San Francisco and all. And so I said, well, I'll try it. And I started going to Calvary before I joined, before I transferred my membership. I was a member of the Japanese Methodist Church when I first came here to San Francisco. And I just left my membership there, and I started going to Calvary. And I was there when Dr. Howie, I think it was Dr. Howie, way back, and I don't know when it was a minister. And then after that, Jim Emerson became a minister, and that's at the time I became an usher. I worked and then I became a head of the ushers at Calvary for almost 8-10 years. I became a deacon, but I never did get any higher. I was still living in Emeryville, and then I started working in Emeryville, and I got a condominium there, and so I would be traveling from back and forth, and so I decided it's kind of hard to be a member of the church and I didn't have a car or anything like that, so I thought maybe I won't go any further other than being a deacon. And when I was still in Emeryville, and I took care of the Contra Costa County and Alameda County people, but you know, going back and forth by bus and all, and then it was kind of getting difficult, and I decided I better not try to continue. Then one of my friends came to Sequoias and said that, why don't you move to Sequoias? So much easier than traveling continually from Emeryville. But anyway, with the Calvary, I really enjoyed, you know, I was being an usher, was wonderful, but, you know, at that time, where so many people coming to Calvary, the seating was kind of hard. We made sure there were some empty places, and whenever the people come in kind of late, we knew just where to let them sit down. And so that was the way it was, really crowded and wonderful at that time. We even have a bouncer. We had a bouncer because of the fact that a couple of times we had some unruly people coming in. I remember one fella, I can't remember the rest, but there's one fella came in. He sat way in the front there, and he started standing up during the service. And I thought, what's that man standing up? And then I saw he was acting very strangely, looking toward the rest of the people there. And I thought, uh-oh, he's acting awfully funny. And so I came back and got my bouncer, who was Ed Pett, Dorothy Pett's husband. Tall, big guy, real nice guy. And he was in the back to help in case there was any problems. So I said, yeah, there's somebody in the front, maybe about the fourth row on the right side. He's acting very strangely. And he could see that fellow was standing up and taking off his jacket. So he rushed over there and said, sir, can I see you a while? and took him out. Then there was a lady about the fourth row or third row from the back, fell asleep and snored very loudly. And here I'm ushering and watching, uh-oh, because the lady next to her didn't know what to do. He didn't want to poke her or anything, so I went over and I said, lady. And then she woke up and she was so embarrassed, but she didn't go back to sleep, so that was good.
You've lived a long and very interesting life. So do you have anything else that you want to share with us? Any wisdom?
Not very much wisdom. I don't know. I wish I was more outgoing more, because I'm kind of not. And I'm trying to be that way. Here, it's easier. But when I was growing up, I was more, I don't know, I was kind of shy, I think, that I wasn't very outgoing. But I wish I had become more that. But then I'm glad I went to Calvary and I met a lot of more wonderful people there.
Well, we here at Calvary are happy that you are a member of our church. And happy you're still a member, and thank you for talking to me. I appreciate it.
No, not at all. And then there are a lot of Calvary people living here, so it's really nice. Yeah.